My name is Tina Harris, and I'm a cultural anthropologist at the University of Amsterdam. I research aviation around the world. What I do is look at social behavior in flying. For example, how do pilots and cabin crew interact with each other during a challenging flight? Or how are people actually cutting down on flying due to climate change concerns? So when I first started doing this research, I was new to the world of aviation. Although my mother was a flight attendant for Cathay Pacific in the 1970s, I had next to no technical expertise in this field. And so I became a bit of an aviation geek. I had to learn a lot of acronyms, I had to learn an entirely new vocabulary, and I had to meet a lot of people. So in order to start out, I started out talking to pilots, air traffic controllers, and cabin crew.
Attention passengers, we've now reached our destination. We hope you enjoyed the flight and have a nice day.
And the place where I started out really was Nepal, where I had done much of my previous research and where I have been traveling since the late 1990s. So one of the places I spent time in order to study aviation was an incredibly mountainous region in Nepal, where you can find something called a short takeoff and landing airport. And this is a STOL, or STOL, airport for short. You find these around the world. And these are airports, often in rugged terrain, where only small aircraft or helicopters can fly, where runways are less than 800 meters long. And, in many cases, the aircraft that fly here have no instruments or radar. This means that pilots have to rely on literally looking out the flight deck window to see where the clouds are. And so I went to one of these airports in Nepal, as I was interested in how flights are managed in remote areas. But first, it took me 3 whole days to get there. Flights were cancelled one after another. And the reason was simply that there was, quote, weather at the destination. So I waited in Kathmandu for 2 days, along with some incredibly frustrated tourists and passengers who kept saying how poorly managed the flights were. I began to think the same day after day, until I finally got there. And it was really only until I was there, in person for a long time, that I was able to see and experience how unpredictable the weather really could be. It was sunny one minute, hailing the next. The skies were calm on Monday at 9 a.m., and by 11 a.m. the winds were whipping around so furiously the airport had to close, yet again. As one air traffic controller told me, there is no option other than patience here. And I kept naively asking questions like, don't you have technology to deal with this? And the air traffic controllers would respond until I could finally see that this particular season, from March to April, was the pre-monsoon season and is the most dangerous with winds. Safety is foremost. And weather forecasting technology is simply not quick or accurate enough. And in fact, many pilots and dispatchers use their personal mobile phones. Many people had 3 phones each. For example, one morning I woke up at 4:45 a.m. to head down to the helipad. It was lovely where I was sitting, but the clouds were apparently bad just over the next mountain range. And this is what happens. Sometimes the weather is good at the current spot and the destination, but not en route. We sat and drank some black tea while the pilot found out about the weather for his next flight. The way this is done is by calling in text. He shows me his phone, a chat group where pilots and related workers are connected. One message asked someone to please text weather in Dingboche. And as soon as that message was sent, it pinged back quickly with various photos of cloud cover and mountains. I was amazed by this. This was quicker and even more real-time than any technology available. Similarly, the next day I learned how to tell what the wind is doing in remote areas where there is no windsock. As another helicopter pilot told me, and I'll quote him here, "First, if there is no sun in the morning, that means the wind is down the valley. If there is sun, then it's up the valley. But not always, of course. In high altitude areas above the tree line, there are no trees. So we look at where the prayer flags are flying. And the prayer flags are our windsocks. We also look at water ripples. When we're flying, if we can't see grass, then birds are a true indicator where they fly. Cows and yak, they don't face the headwind. Eagles, they fly into the wind. Eagles think that they are the king of birds. They can fly from the sea to 30,000 feet. Eagles would rather die than let anyone get in their way. Sparrows, on the other hand, no, they are nothing." After spending days in the completely unpredictable weather, in the highest mountains in the world, I had a much better idea of why cancellations made total sense for safety. And what really dawned on me later was my own bias about the power of technology. We think that technology will solve everything, that slapping a bit of technology in places that have poorly funded infrastructure will, quote, fix it all. But that's not the case, at least not where I was. What I wasn't paying attention to was the fact that forces beyond the social, wind, mountains, rain, are so changeable that they even dictate the various uses of technology and not the other way around. And this is not just a Nepal thing. It might be more extreme in the Himalayas, but with climate change and increasing digitalization, this is a thing in many other parts of the world. You see large technology systems fail in New York, in Amsterdam, and Singapore. And you also see people using their mobile phones to bypass the failed systems and keep things running. So all in all, this sort of beginning foray into what is now my field, the anthropology of aviation, really taught me three things. First, to be skeptical about the power of technology. Second, to not take for granted the people that make and maintain infrastructures. And third, to pay more attention to analog backups or environmental clues, such as not ignoring which way the cows are facing.